If you want to become the best, most functional, most performant version of yourself, train your ambidexterity. Ambidexterity, or cross-dominance, is the ability to move both limbs with equal control, strength, and precision. This is a spectrum, with people being more or less ambidextrous in any number of activities. It is also something that can be trained. However, very few people actively train for ambidexterity. This, I feel, is a big mistake. Let me make a case for it. I am far from the first guy to recommend training ambidexterity. In the early 20th century, this was the mission statement of the Ambidextral Culture Society, established by John Jackson. His goal was to promote two-brainedness, and wrote that, "Each hand shall be absolutely independent of the other in the production of any kind of work whatever. If required, one hand shall be writing an original letter, and the other shall be playing the piano." Lofty aims indeed. Becoming ambidextrous has a vast number of immediate, tangible benefits. A fighter, for example, can benefit from being able to throw equally powerful blows from either arm or leg. An artist benefits from being able to reach different angles without smudging paint where they've already been. A bodybuilder can develop greater muscular symmetry. A footballer can kick from either leg. A tracer can jump from either. A dancer can move with greater full body control. In fact, the lefty advantage, as it's known, is thought to explain the disproportionate number of high-performing left-handed players in many sports. It has even been suggested that the very reason we still have lefties is that they enjoy a competitive advantage in combat. This is the fighting hypothesis. It's also backed up by the fact that animal species that rely on cooperation tend to trend more to a single side. Even your physical attractiveness may be linked to your handedness. It has been suggested that the side we consider to be our good side is normally our dominant side. That's because we have greater control over the facial muscles on that side. Symmetry is, coincidentally, a trait that we universally find attractive. But this is just scratching the surface of how and why ambidexterity is so valuable. Because the other thing to remember is that muscles are not just used for force production. Muscles are also sensory organs that provide information about our bodies and the world around us. Ambidexterity, as far as it would mean increasing dexterity on the non-dominant side, should also improve our ability to feel movement in those areas. This gives us a more detailed picture of our bodies in space, and that theoretically could improve balance and graceful movement across the board. There are several studies that show left-handedness and ambidexterity are linked with improved spatial ability. Other studies interestingly find that this effect is strongest in men, which may have something to do with brain lateralization, and we'll come to that more in a moment. Any bodybuilder knows the importance of muscle symmetry. This has immediate aesthetic benefits, but the effect on performance and health are perhaps even more important. Imagine that you are running a 10k and one leg is slightly stronger and more coordinated than the other. The result could be that when you push off the weaker leg, you actually travel a few centimeters less than the other side. That might sound like not a lot, but now consider how that adds up over the course of all those steps, and consider how that can impact on your overall time and effort. Studies also suggest that learning a skill with one hand can actually provide benefit to the other hand. This works both ways, meaning that if you practice a skill with your non-dominant hand, you'll actually improve with your dominant hand, even if you'd hit a kind of plateau. In all likelihood, the added focus and attention that you're giving to the movement pattern when learning on that side is what helps you to further refine the movement on both sides. But perhaps the real advantage of ambidexterity training could come from the very process of learning a new challenging motor skill itself. I've talked at length about the importance of motor learning to keep the brain flexible and powerful. After all, the sheer amount of information processing that occurs during movement exceeds anything we might accomplish sitting in front of a book. This very process of attending to information and learning is what encourages plasticity. It changes the brain to keep it learning. This could also potentially strengthen the motor cortex at large. This strategy is employed by the Arrowsmith School, where learning challenged students use tracing exercises to see widespread improvements in their language production, both written and spoken. Could similar training with the non-dominant hand improve verbal fluency for everyone? Motor neuroscientist Professor Amy Bastian says, "The more variety of things you do in the fine motor domain, the more variety of hand movements you make will improve your dexterity." Dr. Andrew Huberman's amazing podcasts illustrate the benefit of learning new, complex, sensory-rich movements for unlocking the brain's plasticity. He suggests inversions such as handstands as a particularly good option for those unfamiliar with them. Learning fine control with the non-dominant hand may be an alternative option. Finally, we should note that many people believe ambidexterity comes with heightened creativity and problem solving. This comes partly from the anecdotal evidence that famously ambidextrous individuals such as Da Vinci, Einstein, Ben Franklin and Tesla were all known for their genius levels of creativity. The ambidexterity of these individuals has been called into question at times, though a recent study suggests that Da Vinci really was in fact ambidextrous. Moreover, this is a very small sample size, and I could point to many more notable individuals who are not cross-dominant. Some suggest that ambidexterity may correlate with lower brain lateralization. That is to say that the brain's structures are less neatly organised on either side of the brain and are more dispersed across both hemispheres, resulting in brains that are more symmetrical among the ambidextrous population. This may also result in a thicker corpus callosum, the bundle of nerves that bridges the hemispheres. Posthumous autopsies of Einstein's brain revealed that he did, in fact, possess a thicker than average corpus callosum, and we know that women on the whole have a naturally less symmetrical brain, which makes sense of that study we looked at earlier. With more information travelling more freely around the brain, it is possible that there's a greater potential for novel connections to form between ideas. Left-handers, who make up approximately 10% of the population, as opposed to the 1% of truly ambidextrous individuals, also tend to have less brain lateralization. This is due to the increased need for ambidexterity in a right-hand world. A change in lateralization could also result in other cognitive differences. One study found that those with left-handed relatives, deemed to be weaker-handed and therefore more ambidextrous, actually had better episodic memories for events. Those same individuals also demonstrated poorer semantic memory. The study author suggests that this difference stems from the fact that episodic memories are coded across multiple brain areas, whereas semantic memories require just one hemisphere. Being able to pull information from across the brain is useful for episodic recall, but the crosstalk may result in unwanted interference when it comes to semantic information, hampering speed and accuracy. Those with sinistrality in their DNA may find their thoughts take the scenic route, so to speak. It is true that there's a greater incidence of various cognitive disturbances in ambidextrous individuals. A number of studies link ambidexterity to poorer IQ scores, ADHD, schizophrenia, and more. Interestingly, both ADHD and schizophrenia are linked with creativity, whereas IQ tests benefit from rapid processing of information. However, this correlation is unlikely to be causative. That is to say that in some cases, ambidexterity is a symptom of development issues and not the reverse. There is evidence for this. As we see in a review of the literature conducted by Johanna Barbara Sattler, systematic investigations of the second group of subjects always revealed perinatal cerebral disturbances. This paper discusses the thesis that insufficient oxygen supply to the brain in the perinatal period of life mainly affects the function of the dominant cerebral hemisphere that is responsible for the congenital handedness. Even if increased brain symmetry results in a less organised brain, it is highly unlikely that training for ambidexterity later in life would result in the migration of entire brain functions. We would not likely see the brain become significantly more symmetrical, as we simply lack that kind of plasticity in adulthood. That said, we might be able to thicken the corpus callosum in order to improve communication between hemispheres, and we might see improvements in the motor cortex and cerebellum. Many people could benefit from being a little more creative. Note that the link between weak-handedness and a thicker corpus callosum is far from proven, however. So how do you train this? Most people looking to improve their ambidexterity will be writing with a non-dominant hand. Other drills include toothbrushing with the left hand, swapping cutlery over, etc. This is a great starting point and can help to develop fine motor control that will almost certainly transfer to other tasks, to some extent. In fact, an interesting demonstration of this comes from young children. Our health visitor told us that our daughter, Emmy, would be able to brush her own teeth only once she'd started writing at school. It's the process of writing, you see, that develops the coordination and control necessary to create those small circles with the brush. We've already seen that the Arrowsmith School uses similar strategies to help improve verbal fluency of their pupils. Other inherently ambidextrous practices, such as learning to play the piano, can also have similar effects. Musicians that use both hands have been shown to have thicker corpus callosums, although this is only true for male musicians. Rock climbing, too, may also offer some benefits. For boosting creativity and more, all these options should prove highly effective. But transfer across all skills is not a given. One study found that our non-dominant hands are actually superior when it comes to holding things steady. This makes a lot of sense, given that we so often hold something in one hand and manipulate it with the other. The image of a bow and arrow comes to mind. This also suggests that through practice, we've improved different types of skill on each hand. This suggests that we need a broader approach. Many of us are so lacking in ambidexterity that any additional training will benefit us to an extent. But just as practicing cursive with your right hand is only going to improve your right hook to a certain degree, so too can we get more benefit with specific training on the left side. In other words, if you want to get better at punching with your left hand, you should practice punching with your left hand. Keep in mind that this is a whole body movement that involves coordination of the shoulders, fists, hips, and more. Right now, you probably lack the necessary motor maps to engage all those motor units in the right sequence and with the same explosiveness you enjoy on your dominant side. You likewise also probably struggle to achieve the reciprocal inhibition that ensures antagonistic muscles will relax during the movement. This is as much about strength as it is about dexterity, the ability to recruit larger motor units as needed. Likewise, functional movement patterns like cable chops, cable punch-outs, and one-handed push-ups can all strengthen these areas. Similarly, unilateral movements that involve jumping from one leg or lifting on one side and bracing the core on the other have huge benefit. Favoring unilateral exercises will also encourage symmetrical muscle development and strength. Finally, though, we should also practice movements that train both sides simultaneously. I've spoken recently about movements like crawls and their contralateral nature, and how that challenges us to exert strength and control between hemispheres. This cross-lateral movement helps us to develop the corpus callosum in infancy, and it can be used just the same way in adulthood. In fact, any complex movement that requires communication between the two sides of the body may offer these benefits. Other options include juggling, the aforementioned rock climbing, tai chi, yoga, other certain types of martial arts, etc. We can also use more complex movements in strength training, creating hybrid movements that require strength to be exerted on different vectors simultaneously. This could not only develop strength and control, but also spatial awareness, and perhaps even creativity. So I hope you found this video useful and interesting, guys. If you did, then please leave a like and share it around. That helps me out immensely. Subscribe if you want more like this, and hit the notification button if you want to be notified of new uploads. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think ambidexterity training has the potential to unlock unknown depths of athletic performance and to affect our brains in really interesting ways. Is this something you've experimented with, or will you do now? If you want to learn more about training your body in all kinds of different ways all at once to become as functional as possible, then check out my ebook and training program, Super Functional Training. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below, and there's a discount on right now whilst we're all in lockdown. Alternatively, you could check out my print book, Functional Training and Beyond, which will take you on a journey through the history of functional training and all the different forms of training you can apply to create a more well-rounded program yourself. Either way, thanks so much for watching this one, guys. Thank you for all your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.